What's up, everybody? We got a special guest for you today, author and speaker and soon to be world traveler, Jay the Man Cannon. He wrote a book called A Sober Son, a memoir, a descent into hopeless addiction and journey back. And of course, as soon as I start, people are texting me and everything. All right. So this is Jay wanted me to show the cover right here. That was important to him. Now, why it's important to show this cover? Is it the drawing? What
Well,
does the drawing mean of an upside down kid? What is that all about?
you'll see if you read the book, kind of get into it. It was written for family and husbands and wives and just people that don't quite understand. Almost every family's been touched by this thing. And so the intent was to have something that people could kind of understand. They think, what happened to my husband? What happened to my wife? Who's this psycho? I didn't marry this person. And it's really the addiction. So I kind of like the squiggly people because it looks to me like that could be anybody. You know what I mean? A father and son, a husband and wife. So yeah, I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that
Did you come
squiggly.
up with that, or did you draw that, or just is that something you
I
had? Like
came up with
you
that.
had a vision
Mhm.
and you told somebody to draw it.
I spent a lot of time on the cover, actually. I mean, it's don't judge a book by its cover, but that's commonly how we pick them out. So, yeah, I spent a lot of time on that. I went through some different ideas, and then I sketched that up one day with my limited ability and sent it to a friend of mine, Daniel Bell. His wife is a graphic designer, and she actually put it together digital, sent it to me, and then I asked how much I owed her, and she said, "Don't worry about it. Support the book." So
Good for you.
grateful for them.
Okay, so the I have read the book. All right, and I don't have anybody who's an addict. I am an addict, but I'm a different type of addict. It's not drug is not my drug of choice, but addiction is all very similar. One of the things that you wrote in the first part of the book, it says, to me, like ethanol is distilled from grains, addiction is just pure evil. Why would you? And I've seen you also. You characterize it as a saber-toothed tiger, just waiting for you. This real, just dark type of descriptions. Can you tell me about that? And why did you choose to describe it like that?
Yeah. So, yes, distilled evil is how I describe it, and it's because it brings the worst out for certain. And I think it's important as we talk about family members and everybody understanding that it's uh, a slippery slope, as they say, and it just gets worse and worse. And uh, you can only serve one master, they say, so you can't be serving God, your faith, whatever that may be, and be addicted to this any kind of substance because it's just going to keep taking from you, taking from you, taking from you. And I've seen it destroy families. I've seen it destroy myself and everything else. So I definitely have a respect for substances. I don't mess with them. And yeah, if they get a hold of you, they get you. So
Now this is a very, very uh, open type book where you get really personal. Why would you want to put that public information out there? Weren't you embarrassed? What was that? What was the thought process with that? Why would you? What drove you to write this book?
man, great question. I was okay as I started. I kind of just wanted to tell the story. I had a few friends that you read about in the book that passed that I wanted to memorialize, and I thought it would be helpful to some people. And then as it progressed, I relived a lot of those moments, and they were raw moments, and they were genuine moments. And I said, I think this is important to tell it as close to perfect as I can. And so, yeah, I just got open. And at times I thought like maybe this is too personal, or what are my parents going to think, or more
Yeah.
importantly, like my parents' extended family. What's her sister, my aunt, going to think? And I said, you know what? I think I can help a lot of people, and I'm not going to write this book based on the few that might be offended by it. I'm going to write it for the masses that are going to say, hey, I totally relate to this. This was my son. This was my husband. This was my brother. So, yeah, I
How,
went as
how long?
exacting as I could.
How long were you an addict for?
I was an addict. It's hard to define when I was really sliding down the slope. I got my first, as you read in the book, my first kind of taste in high school, and it definitely at that point had a little bit of a hook in me. But had other things I was working on, and then it was real bad for about 4 or 5 years, where it was daily use basically, and progressive daily use.
So, there's they call it an addiction, a functioning addict. So you're basically in preliminary, your high school, you're still getting good grades, but you're still dabbling in that kind of stuff. So would you define yourself as a functioning addict in the beginning, and then just kind of just progressively got worse?
I like getting high, man. I mean, I was always not thinking just about this hit, but I was like, I got to get to the next hit. And so like I never got arrested. I made sure that I was going to be able to get high tomorrow too. So I don't know if maybe that's the definition of the functioning addict. I'd make sure I scraped a few pennies together. I mean, I got fired for some jobs and stuff like this. I was working bum work, uh, trading stuff, selling stuff, stealing stuff, whatever to get high. But so I definitely wasn't like a functioning member of society as a good taxpayer or anything for the most part, but I definitely kept it rolling.
Yeah, there's a story in the book about you're moving some furniture, and the guy was like, "Hey, I could pay you with some drugs, or I could pay you with cash," and you had to think about it for a little bit, and that temptation was really strong. And you talk about in the book, it when you talk about addiction, this is like a couple sentences a little bit later. You said it embeds itself in the circuitry of our survival instinct, and this is why it is so insidious.
Yeah. It rewires your brain. Opiates specifically is what I was dealing with. And
Why?
yeah, it builds another channel. Why? How does it rewire your brain, or why was
Yeah,
that?
like why, like how does, yeah, take me to it, like, because I know, like, when for sex, for example, you get that high, that's an endorphin kick, when you orgasm, that's that kick. So I heard the stories of chasing the dragon. Like the first time you do it, you just feel so amazing, it just feels fantastic, and then you're always chasing that first high. That's what
Uh-huh.
that's what I hear about, that you're chasing that. And I didn't really hear you. I know you talked about it, how evil and how insidious it is, but compare that. Would you agree or disagree? What's your thoughts on it?
Uh, I mean, I remember the first time it's in the book. I certainly remember that very vividly. That was something special with quotation marks around it. But I don't know if you. I don't know if I was just chasing the dragon. I mean, at a certain point, you're just getting high because you're sick as a dog without it. Your brain's firing, and you're not used to it firing, and you just want to shut that thing off. I think the uh, opiates. I mean, you see a lot of. Mhm. A lot of A-type thinkers get addicted to the opiates because it shuts the brain down. And so when you're in the cycle of addiction, life is obviously falling apart, right? You're having trouble paying rent, your car's broke down, you can't pay to fix it, your mom's mad at you, your girlfriend's broke up with you because you're a bum. So it's like your brain's on overload dealing with all this stuff, and you want to get high again to shut it down. You're like, listen, I'll get high, be high for 4 hours, and I'll deal with all these problems in 4 hours. So the like rush, the dragon, the like that special moment is certainly not what you're chasing anymore. You just want to escape.
Right. So it's basically, it starts off that special moment that you talked about, and then it's just to survive, just to like function normally, and where you're not
Yeah.
like going into spasms. Now, I know, like, I've seen on Dr. Phil, like some people, like with alcohol, they're shaking, they can't even control it, and they're just shaking like that just to get till they get more alcohol. Did it get to, I know you talked about on the plane ride, there were some issues and you're still going through things. Was it like that? Was it similar to like that?
I mean, I got pretty sick, man. I mean, you just do not feel good and you don't know how to deal with it. And yeah, it's like a real bad flu. I mean, in the mass virus era, I don't know what words we can say or not if this is going on YouTube, but in the mass virus era, you see these like if you had those symptoms, achy body, sweaty, your stomach tied up in knots. Yeah, as soon as I started getting my first was always histamine reaction. Um, so strange. The drug like blocks your histamine. So when you start sobering up, you start sneezing, runny nose. Like that was always my first sign and symptom. And I was like, here it comes. And then, your stomach falls apart, sweating real bad first few hours. And then it progressively gets worse. I mean, day 3 is excruciating if you have to go that long without being able to get high. It's brutal. Yeah, brutal. Let me throw one more thing. It is not lethal.
Go ahead.
Yeah. The opiates are not lethal. So if you're dealing with it or somebody's dealing with it, and I hear a lot of moms and let's rewind even a little bit more. The beauty of it is I didn't understand it when I was in G, but now it was a blessing from God that I was able to go through this and that, with his help, with family's help, with good people in my corner, was able to deal with it because, at the time, I didn't understand the trials and tribulations, but now I'm able to help other people. Was able to build a career out of it. So, I'm glad I dealt with it. But if you are dealing with it right now, it's not going to kill you. So, just be tougher than me and hang in there.
Yeah, so when you say it's not going to kill you, I don't know. I mean, it seemed like you were going in that direction. If you would have just kept on, you think you would have.
The withdrawals aren't going to kill you. The withdrawals aren't going to kill you. The drug will kill you real fast. I got sober before the fentanyl era too. So for these kids now with this fentanyl, I would not be messing with them. I mean, there's tons of resources out there. I didn't know, man, when I was in college is when I really started getting bad. And I didn't know there was help for this kind of stuff. I think I said in the book, I can't remember. I mean, AA I thought was black and white movies, didn't think it existed anymore. Didn't know NA existed, didn't realize there were treatment centers because I didn't see it as a medical issue. I didn't see addiction as a medical problem. I saw it as I'm a druggie, a dopey, so yes, it's now classified as a medical condition and they treat it the same way they treat other medical conditions. There's providers, there's specialists, there's therapists. So,
well, they treat it as a disease, and that leads me into the next point that you talked about on the chapter conflagration. Really, really well written book, very easy to read. It's not too long, and he says here, I blame God, genetics, and anything else to anyone who would listen about my problems, but never took. You know what I'm going to say?
Yeah, it's a good.
Never took responsibility. Never took responsibility. So here's my next question. Okay, so then you have one side of the aisle that says, look, this is a disease. This is not my fault. This is completely disease. It has control over me. I'm helpless over the disease. There's nothing I can do. So then there's another side of it. There's another side of the spectrum that says, take responsibility for your life. Do something about it. Own your fucking mistakes and go and get the help that you need. So, but then it says, okay, well, I can't get the help because it's not my fault. It's not my fault. This happened. This is a disease. I just got overwhelmed. Well, and then you look at it. Then the other side of the aisle says, okay, well, you started it in the first place. You started in the first place. That though maybe that first start wasn't maybe your fault, but then you got sucked into it. So where is the happy balance, and where is the point where you take responsibility for your actions?
Yeah, great question. So our book says a great quote, which I'll copy now. It says, "Victims don't get sober," and I've seen it a million times before.
Wow!
After,
can you say that again? Say that again, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Victims do not get sober. It's impossible because you're going to blame everybody but yourself. And I don't know. I guess I don't care too much about what side, the side of the aisle. Like my dad, very much so. Like, why can't you just put it down? Why can't you just put it down? And I do think there is some genetic precursors where I've got that addictive personality, and because it's like, yeah, I'd love to just put it down. I think there's typically some comorbidity, meaning depression, anxiety, some trauma that magnifies everything, right? So it's going to make it harder for you to get sober. And now statistics, it's not great. I think maybe it's around the teens, 10% or so of people actually end up staying sober for their entire life.
Really? So
Yeah,
you're saying like of the 100% of people that go into recovery, only 10% make it like their entire life, never going back?
right.
Jesus,
Yeah,
that's really
yeah.
low.
It's
I didn't
insignificant. So
realize
this,
that.
no, this drug,
Which
it's
drug
very.
was it?
I started with pain pills and then turned to heroin.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
it's very interesting how addictive these pain pills are. And you see the big Pfizer settlement where they just sued them. But
Oh
this
yeah.
was a marketing campaign, right? And so there was an article, and I believe it was the England, Boston, one of these medical journals, right? A well-known one, where a doctor had written a letter to the editor and had said, "I've been prescribing roxycodone or hydromorphine, one of these powerful opiates. And out of all my patients, I haven't seen any long-term addiction." Now, the backstory was this guy was in a hospital setting. He was prescribing it for 3 or 4 days, right, in a hospital. And then these people were going home. So it wasn't like they were being prescribed this for months and had time for that addiction to build. Well, Pfizer or Watson or whichever drug company found this article, which was a letter to the editor. They went to every doctor in the country. They said, "Hey, there's a medical journal. They just wrote a great piece about how this drug isn't addictive. Uh, you should prescribe it." And that's where you started seeing these pill mills and everything else. So it's a highly addictive drug. We know that now. Pfizer paid $100 billion something dollars after making half a trillion. So who cares? They're laughing all the way to the bank. But this drug is extremely addictive. So yeah, 10% success rate is not great, man. And there's still, it's hard to treat. Like the same non-victim thing. It's like when somebody comes in for treatment. Well, his dad was an addict. His dad wasn't an addict. His dad drank every day. His mom never drank. Everybody's different. So how do you treat it? It's like cancer. We take a sample and say, okay, this chemo is going to eradicate this cancer 80% of the time. It's the substances. It's like, does this guy need AA? Does he need to pray? Does he need church? And I think that's in the book too. I was like, man, I don't know what worked for me, but I tried everything. Like every modality they told me: yoga, meditation, jogging, praying, reading the Bible, walking
Now,
the dog.
do you think you could slide back into it?
When I was working a real good program, I had some sponsees, and I would get asked that question sometimes, and I would answer it like this: if you had a roulette wheel with 100 places on there, and 99 of them I could win $1 million, and one of them was I would relapse, get high, and start using again. And we'll add a bonus to the other 99, the $1 million plus I can get high with no consequences. Won't get re-addicted, won't feel like using again, whatever. So 99 out of 100 odds that there's no issue whatsoever, plus $1 million, I wouldn't spin the wheel, right? I wouldn't even play the game because I don't want to find out. I don't want to know. I don't want a free chance to use. I don't want $1 million that bad. So I don't think it's safe for me to play around in my mind. Could I do it or could I not? Sometimes I wonder if I get in a bad accident or something, end up at the hospital. The science says after 5 years, your brain has reused those cells where when you start using progressively, the brain builds a brand new highway from the pain receptor to the pleasure release. It lets the dopamine go.
Really?
Jet stream, straight line. Yeah. After 5 years, the brain has reused those cells. They think that pathway is no longer active. So I hope if I'm ever in the
So if
hospital
I
and
use for like 5 years, I that's a good indicator that I'm going to be on it for the rest of my life. And I'm off. And
no,
if
it
I'm
builds.
off, and if I'm off 5 years, that means I can stay off it for the rest of my. Explain that a little bit.
Okay, no, it builds the pathway much quicker. The pathway much faster.